Suns fans, you know what time it is in the PHX.
Empire of the Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
Empire of the Suns.
The Empire of the Suns podcast is brought to you by Sonic. Drive to your nearest Sonic location and don't forget to order your half-price drink or slush anytime in the Sonic app.
Hello there, and welcome to the Empire of the Suns podcast. My name is Kellen Olson, joined as always by Kevin Zimmerman. What's up, man?
Hi. It's been less than a week since we did our last podcast. There are reasons for that. Would you like to go over the reasons to start, or should I go over the reasons to start?
I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, I need a gas mask for all this Jimmy Butler smoke to breathe right now. It's crazy. Now, this is where we can talk about Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkic getting benched, and if it is semi-related, tangentially related, directly related to the Jimmy Butler happenings. But basically, here's the whole shebang. So we talked about it before. We had an episode about 4 weeks ago, shutting down this nonsense. Remember what your pal Kel said, your best pal in the world. He said, this is just about Jimmy getting paid. Mm-hmm. And then lo and behold, me, no information guy, Brian Windhorst, all the information in the world guy, goes on TV today and says Jimmy Butler just wants money. And Phoenix is the team that is willing to give him money.
It's related,
like,
yeah.
If my dumb self can figure this out like 3 weeks ago, like, come on, like it's not real complicated what's going on here. So we're going through all these reasons why it won't happen and why this is just, again, like nonsense and he's just trying to get paid. And like the most likely end game is this, whatever. A lot has happened specifically in the last day or two where it looks like the Suns are going to go to extreme lengths to try and make this happen or already have. And this will be, unlike most episodes we do where it's going to be some speculation, some of the reporting as well, it might blend together in a way where you're going to have to kind of keep up with us. So if you get a little confused at some point with what we're talking about in terms of what's reported and what's been speculated, I'll run through everything right now. The Suns bench Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkic, a move that I think if we would have had another week or two of podcasting, we would have guessed was going to happen at some point, some sort of big lineup shakeup. It comes. The Suns play a depleted 76ers team, a first half that looked like a bad summer league game. They beat them in the second half quite predominantly. I think it was 42 points they had in the first half, 77 in the second half. Nothing new. Playing good in some spurts. It was good enough to win in that game. We'll see what happens over the next couple of games. Brad plays great for everyone who wants to jump on the recency narrative and do their like day after take and be like, Brad looked totally refreshed. This is the best energy he's had all year.
I saw a meme. Like I can't tell what's ironic anymore or whatever. It's the NBA template with all caps and it says his joy is back, might be back or something. His joy might be back. I can't tell if it's a joke or not. Anyway, continue.
I don't know. I just know that like that's not like the hardest he's tried in a game this year. So like his energy was there, but to act like this completely revived him or like the vibes are back or anything, like give us a couple weeks here. Give us a couple weeks here. So we're gonna breeze past that. Brad, after the game, is asked by a reporter not named Dwayne Rankin, who I don't know who it was, but someone was basically like, "Yo, the streets are talking." And they're talking about Jimmy Butler and how you getting benched might be related to all this Jimmy Butler stuff. What do you think? And then he was like, no trade clause. So doesn't matter.
I hold all the cards.
Anything that happens has to come back to me.
Yeah.
This is not like I think like the real message that he was trying to give is a lot of times you're Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges and you're just making all these cute jokes around like getting traded and have no idea like if you're going to get traded. Brad can't get traded unless he says so. Mm-hmm. So they can have all these meetings and talk about all these 3 or 4 teamers like they're probably doing and all this stuff. It has to come to him no matter what. And I think that's what he was saying. And I thought that it was kind of a baller move, if I'm being honest. I really
I
really respected it.
Yeah.
Was it good for the optics of the team? Of course not. But like, I mean, this is a burning ship already. At least you and I believe that for sure. So this happens last night. And then this morning, Brian Windhorst goes on ESPN on their most watched daily sports programming, First Take, So if there was like a place to say something, that would be it. He does. He says Phoenix is absolutely trying to trade Beal, and like prefaces that statement by saying, like, just to clear up all the rumors, like, this is what's happening. And Windhorst, in my opinion, is the most trusted national source we have right now. Feel like he's money. And he later goes on, and I couldn't fully tell if he was full on reporting still or like just reading the tea leaves or whatever with what he said next, which was that he believes the benching is an attempt to displease Bradley enough.
Make him feel unwelcome.
To get him to waive his no trade clause. So Windhorst speculation, like what part is speculation, what part is reporting, like don't let that part get away from you. Just like the notion of that, again, being said on ESPN's First Take, millions of people have heard it and seen it by now. It's all over the place. I'm really curious now. Like people said they were really curious to watch yesterday's game. I wasn't. I'm really curious to see this game now against Charlotte, because this is happening right in the middle of their season. And everyone had their own kind of quotes. Like Book was like, he didn't see it coming in terms of Brad getting benched. And then Kevin was more of like, we needed a shakeup. So I think both of them were kind of in the same ballpark.
Can I add one bit of context?
Yep.
To the benching? Usually when they have a benching of this sort and you say your players are good, I just think they need to play with different guys or whatever. And I think they're legit on paper, like this stretches out their rotation, which we can talk about later maybe. But there was nothing from either Bud or Beal about them going to Bradley Beal or Nurk and saying, hey, we think you're going to play better in this new role. It was just, we're going to try to get better as a team. There was no trying to sell him like, hey, Manu Ginobili and Jamal Crawford, those guys actually made careers out of playing this role this way off the bench. There was no like trying to justify the moves at all that we heard of from either player or coach. And that to me is the majorest red flag that maybe Windy is correct, because they're not even trying. They're not even trying to sell Brad on it. And like, yeah, he came out and played really hard because like, what else is he supposed to do? He doesn't want to look like it's all his fault and be the scapegoat for this. All right, continue.
In Jimmy Butler land, he turns in an actual trade request. Doesn't matter that he actually asked for a trade request when it was basically like he was soft asking for a trade. He soft quits on the floor for 2 games, doesn't play the fourth quarter. They suspend him, say, get away from us until January 15th when more contracts open up. So by then we'll probably trade you, whatever. It gets reported by Windhorst that Phoenix is the only team willing to pay Jimmy Butler what he wants, because this has been happening for so long. It's been a couple of weeks now where every team has sort of gone like, okay, what would we give him? And then like that information gets around, that gets to him. He tells them, things that are totally legal, by the way. Like all this can happen. They're not breaking any rules or anything. And apparently the Suns are the only team that will give him what he wants. Okay, where else could Jimmy go? Here's the problem. You need a team that's crazy enough to trade for him, which is not a lot of teams for the price that Miami wants to give him up for. I legit think the Suns are the only team that are willing to give up like anything of substance for him right now on an expiring deal. Player option, but he's probably going to decline it and want an extension. So you need the team that's crazy enough to do it and that's okay with re-signing him. Memphis and Milwaukee are like, we'll do it. And then Jimmy's like, no, don't want to go there. Yeah. Sorry. See you later.
Who came out? That like popped up as quickly as it got shot down.
It happened in 24 hours. Yeah. Gambo reported those 2 teams yesterday. Haynes reports no on Memphis this morning. And then Kevin O'Connor reports the same later.
Yeah.
All of this is developing again, like over the course of 24 hours. And then Chris Mannix from Sports Illustrated reports that basically all the talks around executives come back to that Jimmy Butler just wants to play in Phoenix.
Yes.
So this is where I'm like, why is this a thing right now? Well, it's a thing because if there's this much smoke and this much noise, the Suns clearly want to trade for Jimmy Butler. And the part that gets interesting, I didn't include this in the piece. The part that gets interesting because it's like too much speculation, but
yeah.
So if you're benching Brad to get him to waive his no trade clause, does that mean you already had a deal in place that he said no to? Or you thought he would say no to? Oh, interesting all of a sudden, huh?
Okay.
So what would need to happen in those kinds of deals? We're speculating again. We're going further down the rabbit hole. Here we go. What would need to happen in those deals? 2031 pick, gone. You need to include probably more. You need to incentivize the team taking on Butler. People are speculating Detroit, but like Detroit's got like Cade Cunningham having an all-NBA year, and like Jaden Ivey got hurt, but like they're building stuff already. They're not in like a albatross eating stage, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I don't know the CBA. This is a new part of the show. You ready?
Oh.
I don't know how everything in the second apron works. There we go.
Yeah.
Look, hand up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sit. I don't know all the woo-how and do-how with the trade regulations and which team can do what. I'm just going to sit here and put my hand up and say, I think I know. I think I know for the most part, but I don't know for 100%.
You might learn in the next year, Kellen. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it today.
So I'm going to keep my hand up while I say, like, Brooklyn makes sense, Toronto makes sense. Like, teams that are just going nowhere right now don't have high-end talent, and they can just afford to get Brad for 2 years while other young guys like grow or whatever. I'm putting my hand back down. You need to incentivize that team, and you need to incentivize Miami.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about, are you giving up Royce O'Neal to one of those teams that you're not, because you're sending Brad to one team, that means you can't send a second player there. Are you sending a player to the other team? Are you sending Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen, who are two of your more valuable assets? Like, if you blow this thing up in like within a year, you can use those guys later on too to get more stuff. Like, if you look at what the Nets have done masterfully, they basically have done some version of what the Suns might be doing here within 2 to 3 years. Like, they get a boatload of picks for Mikal. They get a few picks here, a few picks there. They're probably going to get 2 first-rounders for Cam here within a month. And, like, that's sort of how they trickled down everything together. Like, they got what they got for Schroeder. They got what they got for Finney-Smith. And those guys, the Suns' version of that, will be Allen and O'Neal, or the Suns consider trading their rookies, which are the only promising young players you have on your team. You actually found 2 promising young players when you're likely headed for a rebuild within a year or two, and that's being kind.
Yeah.
And then, so again, like, speculation, like, why are we here? It feels like we're here because the Suns are already in this sort of headspace where they're willing to give up all this stuff to get Jimmy Butler and extend him, which is not smart, by the way. Like, you should not do that.
More context. So I talked with Gambo briefly. Gambo's had a tweet storm yesterday, Monday, before the game, and he mentioned what teams Beal might waive his trade clause for, and he also mentioned the Pistons as a potential, like, third team facilitating, because it doesn't look like, if Miami doesn't want Beal, like, that's the end of it, right? Between a 2-team trade anyway. So I'm saying that to say Gambo, like, made a bunch of calls throughout the league. I don't know if any of those calls were here locally at all, but basically, to your point about Windy too, the league circles all are hearing the same stuff. That's the Suns and Jimmy Butler. It seems like it's not one direction, because before it just was like, yeah, Jimmy looks like he wants to be out. Yes, he's saying Phoenix, obviously, because it looks like they could pay him, but now it's more Phoenix is also kind of looking into this as well, and obviously where this team has gone is not good, so why wouldn't they? Now, why wouldn't they? You wrote about a lot, and I think that's when we talk about the second apron stuff. Like, if we're just going to keep going down this road,
no one is talking about this. Like, their picks are going to get frozen if they do this. Move to the end of the first round. There are ways in which to undo that over time, but then that's another hurdle you have to jump over.
And then we're just going to live in the same reality where you're spending an absurd amount of money to be a 500 team with things that might not work. And going back to your other point about what Bradley Beal has done in this turmoil, how he reacted one game, I know, but how he has played is like, yes, he mopes. Yes, he has not played well. Neither is Kevin Durant or Devin Booker, and they're not on this, by the way.
Yeah.
But he is, for the most part, been professional, is trying hard, right? Jimmy Butler has not. That is the biggest thing for me. We haven't even talked about that. It's like, this is going to be 10 times worse if Jimmy Butler comes and joins KD and Book and he experiences the same thing Bradley Beal's experiencing right now. It's not going to make any sense at all. It's going to go over 10 times worse with that personality of a human. Right?
Let's say the picks get frozen and they get moved to the end of the first round.
Yeah, let's get back to
You could have a situation where in 28... 29, 30, and 31, and you move the 31 pick to do this.
I don't know if I'm going to be alive then.
You could have 4 straight years where you have, like, whatever pick you do, and it's either at the end of the first round, no matter what, where, like, it could be very well likely 4 straight years where you should have had a top 10 pick or a top 5 pick, and instead you either don't own it or it got bumped to the end of the first round. Like, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. So it's like, instead of it becoming a 3-year rebuild, now it becomes a 10-year rebuild. Like, that's the type of damage that can happen because you need premium talent, and how you get that is at the top of the draft. Like, you can't just say, oh, we'll go, like, guys want to come here, well, they'll sign here.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how it works. You eventually need that premium talent, and if you're just completely going wayside with the draft and like the lottery, and I don't really think that's the thinking here, to be clear, but I think that it's one of like it's on the list of pros and cons, and it's like, what? Like, no, like you cannot go there. The whole reason that is in place is to basically tell teams like, no, like, enough, you can't do this. Don't
ruin your franchise, please. We're trying to protect you at some point. That's where we're at in this. Like, you wrote the column because it's not only like Matt Ishbia like quadrupling, quintupling down on what he's done so far with like, I'm going to win with stars, whatever, I'm going to sell off my draft picks. Like, we're going to be tested in, like, if I'm being an objective non-fan, I'm super intrigued by them trading for Jimmy Butler. We could talk about the possibilities of getting it done in a sec if you want. Like, the actual, could it happen? But they're looking into it because, what am I trying to say? We're about to see something crazy is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I'm a sicko because I'm kind of curious. I kind of want to see a Jimmy Butler trade, not because I think the Suns will be good, but because it's going to be the most fascinating next few years in the worst, most painful way.
That's,
you know,
true,
that does that make
stuff,
sense?
brother.
It's sicko
That's
stuff.
True
it's
sicko
like
stuff.
I
don't. So it essentially comes down to, and what I wrote at the end is like, admitting this just did not work. You just gotta, at a certain point, you just gotta stop.
Yeah.
And I think that there are ways in which 3 months ago, I would have been on board with this idea. Like, let alone like 9 months ago. Like 3 months ago, I probably would have been like more on board with this deal. But we have seen all of these elements change around the team, and the same stuff, like seeing Indiana takes 18 more shots. It's like, I watched that game in Indiana last year.
Yeah.
Remember when Book scored 62 and they lost? It was the same thing. They didn't have enough shots. And it's like, how am I watching the same thing over and over again with the same team, same opponents? And yet everything is supposedly changed about this team. The coach, the depth players. So like, I don't buy that a better fit as a third star is going to fix all of this. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. Now, do the Suns agree? Do they feel like they've gotten bad injury luck? Do they feel like this is Brad and Brad's a scapegoat? You wrote a thing in the morning, which is like very clear. And like Burns and Gambo had a poll going in that I disagree with. Lauren disagrees with as well, to the point where she voted on it, where if you had to look at the 3 trades, and we'll probably do an episode on this when this is all said and done, when we have nothing to talk about except like some 37th overall Tumani Kamara pick guy that we really like, and he's like showing steps over the next couple of weeks. Like, we're gonna have time for this stuff, buddy. Don't worry. The logo is gonna keep spinning. We're gonna have time. Where it's like, which trade put them in this position the most? Was it Durant, Beal, or Nurk? And like, it's the Durant trade. Like, it's just like that is what set the wheels in motion, for one. For two, like, Mikal has taken a huge step as a player. Cam is having a career year. Like, those young guys got better. And 3, the whole reason why you did this, and the reason why I thought you should have done it, is because I didn't think you were making the finals or winning a championship with that current team. You haven't even made the conference finals with this team anyway. Like, you haven't even gotten that far. So I think that they are at their wits' end with everything, but it is... doing so will be an admittance that they were wrong, and I just don't know if we're going to see that. And based on all of these, like, the rumblings are like a magnitude earthquake, like, at this point. It does not feel like the Suns are willing to admit they were wrong yet. And in doing so, they are going to further damage their future for, I don't even want to say the slim chance that this would work out, because it's just like, the stars would have to perfectly align. All 3 guys would have to stay healthy. They would have to be terrific basketball fits together. And we already have questions about the 2 of the guys in their basketball fits together. I thought they would be perfect basketball fits, but they clearly aren't. Again, why? I don't know. But it doesn't make them win basketball games.
Yeah. The crazy part about it is everything happened right that day Matt Ishbia officially took over. He takes over that night, late in the middle of the night, makes the KD trade. How quickly KD sprains his ankle in warmups. How quickly KD comes back, and as well as he played under that Monty Williams team, it was just like, this is not the same. Like, even though Chris Paul was still there, I know maybe he was hurt. I don't know. But he wasn't the same. It wasn't Chris Paul's team anymore, obviously, because KD's there. And that's not to say this is scapegoating KD at all either. But the identity changed. It didn't feel the same. Denver was really good, I guess. That's fair. But it's just been the same thing since day one of this thing. So that's why it's going to be fascinating too, from like the, I guess, fan backlash or perception of ownership, leadership. Like you get two really, really amazing players who are probably in the Hall of Fame at some point or whatever, and Book and KD, but it's just like not been fun. And I think most people could say it's not been fun. And if you keep doing this, I don't know what people are going to think.
Well, and this is the front office that right after all of this kind of stuff happened, I believe, not last summer, of course, but 2 summers ago, there's the Brian Windhorst article in which he writes about how the Suns are going to blow through the second apron. Like they were puffing their chests out like, oh, we can be the contrarians. We will make this work. And you, by doing all of this, would admit that you were wrong.
Yeah. I don't know how they, like, you can still pull the plug on this is the thing. And I think we're doing this podcast, one, because it paints the picture of, like, obviously if in the next month, if they don't trade for Jimmy Butler, does it go into the offseason? I don't know.
Yeah. And people might hear us saying, like, admit they're wrong. It's like, what do you mean? Like, of course they made a mistake. Like, it's easy. Like, these are extremely prideful people. Yeah. That like made very big public like. And by the way, we thought moves.
A lot of these moves, we were like, yeah, go for it. Kevin Durant for Mikal Bridges, yeah, go for it.
Like, again, like admits we're wrong. Like we were wrong about the Durant trade. We were wrong about the Beal trade. Like we can just say it there and go. But the Suns are going to do it through their actions. Like they did, as I've said on the podcast countless times, when they signed Tyus, it was like, oh, the backcourt doesn't work. You're just saying the backcourt doesn't work by doing that. There were reasons, of course, Tyus Jones, yada, yada, whatever.
Yeah. Do you want to get into 2 conspiracy theories real quick?
Yeah, go ahead with yours.
Okay. If you remember, speaking of the first day Matt Ishbia took over, he had to put down some news, some reporting that had been done that Isiah Thomas, formerly of the Knicks, among other things, was going to be pulled into this whole thing and have a position in the front office. Now, he kind of denied that. Wouldn't say never. Isiah Thomas is not part of the Phoenix Suns officially right now.
Still around though. Still seeing him somewhere.
I don't know how I Googled this, but I went, and it's funny, and we'll tie in the second conspiracy theory here, because this is Tom Haberstro's probably conspiracy theory expert number 1 in NBA circles.
Yeah.
I went to look up the Knicks because I just remember, if you remember Isiah Thomas's time with the Knicks, it was just like Marbury, Jerome James, Eddie Kerr. Like,
it was the worst spell by a front office executive in NBA history.
It was like every big name, I'm going to go get them. I'm going to pay them lots of money. If it's not going to work out, I'm pay them lots of money to leave. And it reminds me of this, where it's just like, look, love owners spending as much money as humanly possible, but if you're just doing it willy-nilly without considering at all how they fit on the basketball court, it's madness almost. And we're seeing the same thing. And I found this, you can look it up on ESPN. Thomas's final stat line, a crying shame by Tom Haberstroh. He was with ESPN then, June 7th, 2010. And he just runs down the list and literally is like, Isiah Thomas effectively lit $50.6 million on fire by paying Jerome Williams, Maurice Taylor, Dan Dickau, and Stephon Marbury for seasons in which they did not play for the Knicks. I mean, there's Jerome Williams, Jamal Crawford, Zach Randolph.
And your theory is that this is similar line of thinking.
This is exactly how this team is operating since day one.
Money. They're just
spend money. Like, yes, they're good basketball players. Bradley Beal, flawed. And it just hasn't worked out.
Ultimately, a very good thing when you have an owner willing to spend this much money. Ultimately, a very good thing. Don't get me wrong, but in this case, you just got to stop.
You just got to stop. So that's my one conspiracy theory. I'm not saying Isiah Thomas is or is not, but they're acting, and it reminds me of how he used to act as a Knicks leader. Conspiracy theory number 2, also a Tom Haberstroh, but Gambo did bring this up. Detroit, bringing us back to the present more, is seen as a third team, and I can kind of believe it. I do not know why Bradley Beal want to go there. I'll say that off the top. But I did Spotrac, trade machine dealio. I don't know if it does the apron stuff correctly, but basically
most of the time, but sometimes it screws up for you fake trade heads listening. Most of the time, but there's still some stuff there that the CBA gods tell me that is no-go. I got it to confirm a Suns get Butler, Pistons get Beal, and Heat get Tobias Harris, Ron Holland, and Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley is expiring. Like, those are three pretty good players that Miami Heat would get. The Suns could throw in some, draft assets. You would have to give up unprotected for Holland, and I don't even know if Detroit would do that.
Yeah. So, and I don't know how you get that done without, giving up one of your rookies, and then that complicates the salary thing. So maybe it's possible. The thought on the Pistons was, okay, here's